Welcome to Sleepy Science. Wherever you are listening from tonight, allow your surroundings to soften, allow your breathing to slow, and let the world outside gently fade into the background. This is a place for calm curiosity, not effort, not urgency, just quiet understanding. The universe is vast, but understanding it does not require tension. It only asks for patience. The universe is everything that exists, all matter, all light, all space, and all time, woven together into a single continuous reality. It is not only the stars we see in the night sky, or the planets we imagine drifting through darkness, but also the invisible distances between them, distances so large that the human mind cannot easily picture them without effort. When we say universe, we mean every atom, every ray of light, every moment that has ever passed, and every moment that has yet to come. At first glance, space appears empty. When we look up at the night sky, we see darkness between points of light, and our instinct is to think of that darkness as nothing. But space is not nothing. It is a real thing with properties of its own. It can stretch. It can curve. It can change over time. Space is not a silent background where the universe happens. It is part of the universe itself. For a long time, humans believed the universe was static and unchanging. The stars were thought to be fixed, placed forever in the same positions, like small holes in a solid dome surrounding the Earth. This idea was comforting because it suggested permanence and stability. A universe that does not change feels safe and predictable. But as observation became more precise, cracks began to appear in this picture. When astronomers started measuring the light from distant stars and galaxies, they noticed subtle shifts. The light arriving from faraway objects was not exactly the same as light produced nearby. It carried quiet information about motion and distance, like a whisper traveling across immense stretches of space. This light revealed something unexpected. The universe was not standing still. The idea of expansion does not mean that everything is flying outward from a single center through empty space. There is no central point where the universe sits and grows into something else. Instead, expansion means that space itself is stretching, slowly and steadily, carrying galaxies along with it. The distances between galaxies increase over time, not because the galaxies are racing through space, but because the space between them is becoming larger. A useful way to imagine this is not as an explosion, but as a surface that gently stretches. If points are drawn on that surface, the points move farther apart as the surface expands, even though the points themselves are not moving on their own. In the universe, galaxies are like those points, and space is like the stretching surface beneath them. This stretching is incredibly slow on human timescales. It does not affect our bodies, our planet, or even our solar system in any noticeable way. Gravity holds small structures tightly together. Atoms remain bound. Planets remain in orbit. Stars remain within their galaxies. The expansion of the universe becomes noticeable only over immense distances. Distances measured in millions and billions of light years. The question then arises, why does the universe expand at all? Why is space not fixed and unchanging? The answer lies not in a single object or force, but in the nature of the universe itself. Space and time are not passive. They are dynamic, capable of change, capable of motion, capable of growth. In the earliest moments of the universe, conditions were extremely dense and energetic. From that state, space began to stretch, not violently, not suddenly in the way explosions behave, but continuously. That stretching never stopped. It continues even now, quietly, steadily, without sound. The expansion of the universe is not something happening somewhere far away. It is happening everywhere at once. Every region of space is gently increasing in scale. Though the effect is too subtle to feel or see directly, This idea can feel abstract, but it is grounded in observation. The light reaching us from distant galaxies carries the imprint of this expansion, encoded in its color and wavelength. As you rest and listen, it can be calming to realize that the universe is not chaotic in its growth. It follows simple patterns. It changes slowly. It unfolds over timescales far beyond a human lifetime. There is no urgency in the universe, no rush, only gradual motion. Understanding the universe does not require holding all its details at once. It is enough to accept one simple truth: space itself is capable of changing, and the universe we live in is gently expanding, moment by moment, breath by breath, whether we are awake to notice it or asleep beneath the stars. For most of human history, the universe was understood through the rhythm of daily life. The sun rose and set. The stars returned to the same positions night after night. The sky felt orderly and calm, like a ceiling that never moved. This repetition created a deep sense that the universe was fixed and unchanging, a stable backdrop against which human lives quietly unfolded. Early observers believed Earth stood at the center of everything. It felt natural, because the ground beneath our feet did not move, and the sky seemed to rotate around us. The stars appeared attached to an invisible sphere, turning slowly as a whole. This idea lasted for centuries, not because it was careless, but because it matched what the human eye could directly experience. As time passed, tools became more refined. Telescopes allowed humans to see farther and more clearly than ever before. Tiny points of light that once looked identical began to reveal differences. Some stars were closer, some farther, some brighter, some dimmer. Objects once thought to be simple, stars were revealed to be entire galaxies, collections of billions of suns drifting through space. This shift was quiet, but profound. The universe suddenly felt much larger. Earth was no longer the center. Even the sun lost its central role. Humanity began to understand that we lived inside a vast structure, one that extended far beyond imagination. Still, even as the universe grew larger in our understanding, it was assumed to be static. Galaxies were thought to sit calmly in space, frozen in their positions. There was no obvious reason to believe otherwise. Nothing in everyday life suggested that space itself could change. The turning point came when astronomers began carefully studying light. Light is not just brightness. It carries information about where it comes from and how it has traveled. When light moves, its properties can subtly shift. By examining these shifts, scientists realized that distant galaxies were not simply sitting still. The farther away a galaxy was, the more its light appeared stretched. This stretching followed a clear pattern. It was not random. It suggested motion, but the motion was strange, because it did not point to a single direction or center. Slowly, a new picture formed. Galaxies were not moving through space away from a point. Instead, the space between galaxies was growing. Everywhere, in all directions. This idea challenged deeply held intuitions, because it described a universe that evolves over time. Accepting a changing universe required letting go of the idea of cosmic permanence. It meant understanding that even the largest structures are part of a process. Stars are born and fade. Galaxies drift and transform. Space itself participates in this quiet motion. This realization did not make the universe feel chaotic. In many ways, it made it feel calmer. A universe that changes slowly and predictably is not unstable. It is alive in a gentle sense. It breathes on timescales so vast that human worries become very small. As you listen, it can be soothing to imagine this long shift in understanding. Generations of humans gazing upward, slowly adjusting their ideas, gradually realizing that the universe is not a fixed stage, but a living structure. Nothing rushed this discovery. It unfolded over centuries, thought by thought, observation by observation. Tonight, You are part of that long line of quiet observers. You do not need to solve the universe. You only need to rest within the idea that it is larger and calmer than it once appeared, and that its slow expansion mirrors the slow widening of human understanding itself. As instruments became more precise and observation turned from simple watching into careful measuring, astronomers began to notice that the universe was quietly giving away its secrets through light, not in sudden revelations, but in slow, consistent patterns that only revealed themselves when patience and repetition were applied over many years of calm study. Light arriving from distant galaxies carried subtle differences compared to light produced closer to Earth. And these differences were not errors or distortions. They were consistent, measurable, and repeatable, which meant they were telling a story about motion, distance, and the nature of space itself, rather than about flaws in observation. When scientists compared the light from nearby galaxies to the light from extremely distant ones, they noticed that distant light appeared stretched, shifted gently toward longer wavelengths, a change so slight that it required careful instruments and quiet attention to detect, yet so consistent that it could not be ignored once seen. This stretching of light did not behave randomly. It followed a simple rule. The farther away a galaxy was, the more its light appeared stretched by the time it reached us, creating a smooth relationship between distance and change, like a calm gradient spreading across the observable universe. At first, this was deeply confusing, because stretching light suggested motion. Yet the galaxies themselves did not appear to be moving through space in the way objects move through air or water. There was no visible direction, no central point, no cosmic wind pushing everything outward. The realization came slowly and carefully. The motion was not happening inside space. The motion was space itself, expanding evenly in all directions, carrying galaxies with it the way a slowly inflating surface carries points drawn upon it without those points needing to move on their own. This idea required a complete shift in perspective, because humans naturally imagine space as an unchanging container, a silent stage on which events occur. Yet the evidence suggested that the stage itself was stretching, growing, and changing over time in a quiet, continuous way. Once this idea settled, many other observations began to make sense. Patterns that once felt disconnected aligned into a single calm picture. A universe that began in a denser state and has been gently expanding ever since, not violently, not chaotically, but steadily and everywhere at once. This expansion did not imply destruction or instability. It implied evolution. A universe that unfolds gradually, where distances increase but structures remain intact at smaller scales, allowing stars to form, planets to orbit, and life to quietly emerge in sheltered corners of cosmic time. For the human mind, this realization was both humbling and comforting. Humbling because it placed humanity far from any center or special position. Comforting because it revealed a universe governed by simple relationships rather than sudden unpredictable change. As you rest with this idea, imagine light leaving a distant galaxy billions of years ago, traveling calmly through expanding space, slowly stretching as the universe grows, until it finally reaches your eyes or instruments, carrying with it a quiet message about the nature of reality. There is no urgency in this motion, no sound, no vibration, only distance increasing at a pace so gentle that entire civilizations rise and fade while the universe continues its steady expansion without pause. Let that steadiness settle into your thoughts, the idea that the universe does not rush, it expands patiently, and in doing so, it reminds us that understanding can also arrive slowly, gently, without effort, as the mind relaxes and allows the vastness of space to simply be. When people first hear that the universe is expanding, the mind often imagines an explosion, a burst of matter flying outward into empty darkness. Yet this picture is misleading, because it places expansion inside space, while the true idea is far more subtle and far more calm. The expansion of the universe does not describe galaxies rushing through a fixed background. It describes the background itself slowly stretching, meaning that the distances between galaxies increase over time, even if the galaxies themselves remain relatively still within their local regions. There is no edge where the universe pushes into something else, and there is no center from which everything moves away. Instead, every point in space experiences expansion in the same quiet way, making every location appear as if it were the center when viewed from within. This can be difficult to picture because human experience is rooted in solid objects and fixed distances. Yet on cosmic scales, distance is not rigid. It is flexible, capable of growing without tearing or breaking the structures embedded within it. Small systems are protected from this stretching by forces that hold them together. Atoms remain bound by electrical forces. Planets remain in orbit due to gravity. Stars remain within galaxies because local gravity is far stronger than the slow expansion of space itself. Expansion becomes meaningful only when distances are immense, so large that local forces no longer dominate, allowing space to gently open between galaxies and clusters over billions of years without disruption or violence. This means that the universe can expand without changing the familiar world around us. Our bodies do not stretch. Earth does not drift apart. The night sky appears mostly the same from one generation to the next, even though on the largest scales everything is gradually moving farther away. The calm nature of expansion reveals something important. The universe is not fragile. It is resilient, able to grow while maintaining structure, able to change without chaos, a balance that unfolds slowly and predictably. Time plays a central role in this process because expansion is not a moment. It is a history, a continuous unfolding that began long ago and continues now, with each second adding an almost imperceptible increase to cosmic distances. If you imagine space as a fabric, expansion is not the fabric tearing or flapping. It is the threads themselves becoming slightly longer, allowing the whole surface to grow while remaining smooth and connected. This fabric does not ripple or vibrate in a way we can feel. It stretches silently, without friction, without sound, without resistance, a process so gentle that it can only be understood through careful observation and long periods of reflection. Understanding expansion in this way removes fear from the idea. There is no sense of collapse or instability, only a universe calmly adjusting its scale, making room for time, light, and structure to continue their slow journey. As you settle deeper into rest, it can be soothing to realize that even the largest changes in the universe happen with patience, not force, and that this same quiet pace is reflected in natural rhythms, in breathing, in sleep, and in the gradual passing of thought into stillness. When we imagine space, we often picture a perfect emptiness, a vast dark nothing separating stars and galaxies. Yet this idea comes from everyday intuition rather than from what careful observation has revealed about the true nature of the universe. Space is not an absence. It is a presence, a real component of the universe with its own properties, its own behavior, and its own role in shaping how matter and light move and change over time. Even though it cannot be touched or seen in the usual way, even in regions far from stars and planets, space is never truly empty. It contains faint energy, subtle fields, and the lingering traces of particles and radiation that have passed through over billions of years, leaving behind a quiet but measurable influence. This means that when space expands, it is not nothing expanding into nothing. It is something stretching, something that already exists becoming larger in scale while remaining continuous and connected everywhere. The idea that space can stretch may feel strange, because stretching usually implies resistance or tension, yet cosmic expansion happens without strain, without friction, and without sound, making it one of the most gentle, large-scale processes imaginable. Light moving through space responds to this expansion. not by slowing down, but by changing its form. Its wavelength gradually increasing as the distance it travels grows larger, a calm transformation that carries information about the universe itself. Energy within space does not disappear as the universe expands. Instead, it spreads out, becoming more diffuse, more evenly distributed, contributing to the overall cooling and calming of the cosmos over immense periods of time. This spreading of energy is one reason the universe feels quiet and cold on large scales. Not because energy vanished, but because it has been shared across an ever-growing volume of space. Understanding space as something active, rather than empty, changes how we think about existence. It suggests that the universe is not built only from objects, but also from relationships, distances, and the subtle structure that connects everything together. In this view, expansion is not a dramatic event, but a natural behavior. Space doing what it is capable of doing, gently increasing in scale, while allowing matter and light to follow their own calm paths. As your thoughts slow, it can be comforting to imagine space not as a void, but as a soft, continuous presence, holding galaxies, carrying light, and expanding quietly without urgency. Nothing is forced, nothing is rushed. Space simply becomes a little larger with time, and in that slow growth, there is a sense of stability rather than uncertainty. Let this idea settle. The universe is not built on emptiness. It is built on a quiet fullness that stretches patiently, giving everything room to exist, and giving the mind permission to rest within its vast calm. When we speak about galaxies moving away from each other, it is easy to imagine them drifting through space like boats on a dark ocean. Yet this image quietly misleads the mind, because on the largest scales, galaxies are not traveling through space in the usual sense. They are being carried by space itself as it slowly stretches. Each galaxy is held together by its own gravity. Stars orbit calmly within it. Systems remain stable. Shapes remain familiar. And nothing inside a galaxy feels the expansion directly. Because the forces binding these structures are far stronger than the gentle stretching of space between galaxies. The motion we observe is not the motion of galaxies choosing a direction or accelerating like vehicles. It is a change in distance that happens everywhere at once, meaning that from any galaxy, all distant galaxies appear to be moving away, creating a perfectly balanced and symmetrical pattern. This symmetry is important because it tells us that there is no special location in the universe, no privileged center, no hidden anchor point. Every observer sees the same large-scale behavior, a universe calmly increasing its scale in all directions. Imagine marking points on a flexible surface and then allowing that surface to slowly expand. Each point will find that all other points are farther away, even though none of the points moved across the surface. This is how galaxies behave within expanding space. Because of this, galaxies that are very far apart can appear to separate faster than galaxies that are closer, not because they are moving faster through space, but because more expanding space exists between them, adding distance continuously over time. This idea can feel counterintuitive, yet it is deeply consistent and reliable. It allows astronomers to measure cosmic distances and understand the overall structure of the universe, using simple relationships rather than complex, unpredictable motion. On human scales, movement is dramatic and noticeable, yet on cosmic scales, change is subtle and slow. Distances increase quietly, while everything familiar remains steady and unchanged. This balance between motion and stability is one of the most calming aspects of the universe. It shows that large-scale change does not require disruption, and that growth can happen without disturbance. As you listen, it may help to let go of the need to visualize exact paths or speeds, and instead allow the idea of distance itself gently increasing, like a slow breath expanding the chest, then resting again without effort. The universe does not hurry its galaxies, it simply gives them more room. And in that slow widening, there is a sense of order, patience, and deep quiet that mirrors the natural rhythm of rest and sleep. Light is one of the most gentle messengers in the universe because it travels without weight, without sound, and without intention, yet it carries precise information about distance, motion, and the condition of space itself, making it one of the most reliable guides to understanding cosmic expansion. When light leaves a star or a galaxy, it begins its journey with a specific wavelength, a specific color, even if that color is invisible to human eyes. And as it moves through space, it normally keeps this identity unchanged, unless something affects the space it travels through. In an expanding universe, space itself becomes that influence, because as space stretches, it also stretches the light traveling inside it, gently lengthening the wavelength over time, a process that does not damage the light or slow it down, but quietly transforms it. This stretching causes light to shift toward the red end of the spectrum, not because the source is fading or cooling, but because the distance between the waves increases as space expands, spreading the energy across a slightly larger scale. The farther light travels, the more space it crosses, and the more stretching it experiences, which means that light coming from very distant galaxies arrives altered in a predictable and measurable way, carrying with it a record of how much the universe has expanded during its journey. This effect is not sudden, not dramatic, and not visible in daily life. It happens slowly and consistently, wave by wave, across millions and billions of years, making it one of the calmest forms of change imaginable. What makes this especially powerful is its simplicity. There is no need to track the motion of galaxies directly. No need to follow complex paths. The light itself tells the story, quietly encoding distance and expansion into its color. This relationship allows the universe to be read like a soft map, where deeper red suggests greater distances and longer journeys through expanding space, and closer light remains nearer to its original form. As space expands, light does not resist, it adapts. It stretches smoothly, remaining whole, remaining continuous, a reminder that change does not always involve loss. Sometimes it simply involves transformation. This transformation happens everywhere, in every direction, without preference or interruption, reinforcing the idea that expansion is not an event, but a condition of the universe, always present, always unfolding. As you settle further into rest, it can be calming to imagine ancient light drifting peacefully across expanding space, slowly changing, never rushing, never stopping until it gently reaches awareness, carrying with it the quiet story of a universe that grows patiently, wave by wave, moment by moment. Redshift is a calm and subtle idea, not dramatic or explosive, yet it is one of the clearest signs that the universe is expanding, because it connects distance, light, and time into a single quiet relationship that can be measured and trusted. When light is stretched by expanding space, its wavelength becomes longer, and longer wavelengths correspond to redder colors, which is why this effect is called redshift, even though most of this light lies far beyond what human eyes can see directly. This shift toward red does not mean that galaxies are growing colder or weaker. It means that the space between the source of the light and the observer has increased while the light was traveling, gently pulling the wave apart as the universe slowly grew larger. What makes redshift especially meaningful is its consistency. The farther away a galaxy is, the greater its redshift appears, forming a smooth pattern that stretches across the observable universe like a quiet gradient of time and distance. This pattern allows distance to be estimated without traveling anywhere, simply by reading the light that arrives, because the amount of stretching directly reflects how much the universe has expanded during the light's journey. In this way, light becomes a kind of memory, carrying with it a record of the universe's growth, not written in words, but encoded in wavelength and frequency. readable by instruments designed to listen carefully rather than look loudly. Redshift does not require sudden movement or violent acceleration. It arises naturally from the steady expansion of space, making it one of the most peaceful indicators of large-scale change ever discovered. As distances increase, redshift increases not because anything is trying to escape, but because space itself calmly opens, allowing more room between points that were once closer together. This relationship creates a universe that is orderly rather than chaotic, where distance and change follow simple rules that unfold gradually, allowing prediction without urgency and understanding without tension. For the mind at rest, redshift can be imagined as a soft stretching of sound, like a deepening tone that slows and lengthens as it travels through a widening space, never breaking, never stopping, only changing form. There is something reassuring in this, the idea that the universe communicates its motion quietly, without force, through gentle shifts that require patience to notice. As you continue listening, let the idea of redshift settle like a slow breath, a reminder that even the vast movement of the universe reveals itself not through noise or disruption, but through subtle, consistent change, inviting the mind to slow down and follow its rhythm toward rest. Time and expansion are deeply connected, not as separate ideas, but as parts of the same gentle process. Because the universe does not expand all at once, it expands through time, moment by moment, allowing change to unfold slowly rather than instantly. When we say the universe is expanding, we are also saying that it has a history, a past that was denser and closer together, and a present that is more spread out, with greater distances separating the same structures that once rested nearer to one another. This means that every point in space carries a memory of earlier times, not as stored information, but as a condition, because the current size of the universe reflects how long it has been expanding, making time visible through distance. Light traveling through space becomes a bridge between time and expansion, because the longer it travels, the further back in time it allows us to look, and the more expansion it experiences along the way, quietly linking past and present in a single observation. When we observe distant galaxies, we are not seeing them as they are now, but as they were long ago, when the universe was younger and smaller, meaning that looking outward is also looking backward, into earlier chapters of cosmic history. This does not require imagination alone. It is a direct result of light needing time to travel, combined with space changing while that travel takes place, creating a layered view of the universe where different distances correspond to different ages. As time passes, expansion continues, increasing distances further, softening structures, and allowing energy to spread more evenly, guiding the universe toward a calmer and more diffuse state without any sudden transitions. Time in the universe does not rush. It flows steadily, measured not by clocks, but by change, by the slow widening of space and the gradual cooling of energy. Process is so patient that they can only be noticed through long reflection. This perspective can be deeply calming because it places human time into context, showing that minutes and hours are tiny ripples within an ocean of cosmic duration, where billions of years pass with the same quiet certainty as a breath. Nothing in the universe demands speed. Expansion does not hurry toward a goal. It simply continues, allowing time to stretch alongside space, creating room for stars to shine, galaxies to evolve, and awareness to briefly exist. As you rest with this idea, it can feel grounding to know that time itself is part of a slow unfolding, and that sleep, like expansion, is not something to force, but something that arrives naturally when resistance fades and the mind allows itself to drift along the steady current of the universe. It is natural to assume that if the universe is expanding now, it must have always expanded in the same smooth way. Yet careful observation reveals a more subtle story, one where the pace of expansion itself has changed over time, responding to the balance of energy and matter within the universe. In the earlier stages of the universe, when everything was closer together and denser, gravity played a stronger role, gently slowing the expansion as matter pulled on matter, creating a gradual resistance to the stretching of space without ever stopping it entirely. This slowing was not abrupt. It was calm and continuous, like a hand resting lightly against motion rather than forcing it to halt, allowing expansion to continue while gradually changing its rhythm. As the universe grew larger and more spread out, the influence of matter weakened because gravity becomes less effective across greater distances, allowing another effect to quietly take on a more noticeable role. Over time, observations revealed that expansion was not only continuing, it was gently speeding up, a discovery that surprised many because it suggested the presence of an influence that counteracts gravity rather than working with it. This influence does not behave like a push or an explosion. It acts more like a persistent tendency of space itself to grow, a background effect that becomes more apparent as matter thins and distances increase. The realization that expansion has a changing rate does not make the universe feel unstable. Instead, it adds depth to its story, showing that cosmic evolution is shaped by shifting balances rather than rigid behavior. There are no sudden turns or sharp transitions in this process, only gradual changes unfolding across billions of years, changes so slow that entire civilizations rise and fall while the universe calmly adjusts its pace. Understanding this allows us to see expansion as dynamic but not chaotic, responsive but not unpredictable, guided by simple relationships that reveal themselves only through long and careful observation. As you listen, it can be comforting to imagine the universe adjusting its rhythm like a slow breath, sometimes easing, sometimes deepening, but always remaining smooth and continuous. This changing pace reminds us that growth does not need to be constant to be natural, and that even on the largest scales, change can occur without disruption, allowing the universe and the mind to settle into a steady and restful flow. As astronomers continued to observe the changing pace of cosmic expansion, they realized that something subtle yet powerful was influencing the universe, something that did not shine, did not clump like matter, and did not reveal itself directly, yet gently shaped the large-scale behavior of space itself. And this unseen influence came to be known as dark energy. Dark energy is not a substance that can be held or isolated. It is a description of an effect, a calm, persistent tendency for space to expand, one that becomes more noticeable as the universe grows larger and matter becomes more spread out. Unlike matter, which gathers and pulls inward through gravity, dark energy appears to act evenly everywhere, not concentrating in one place, not forming structures, but quietly filling space and influencing how space behaves on the largest scales. This even distribution is important because it explains why expansion looks the same in every direction, no matter where we observe from, reinforcing the idea that the universe has no special center and no preferred orientation. Dark energy does not push galaxies apart in a dramatic way. It does not cause sudden acceleration or disruption. Instead, it acts like a background condition, a gentle pressure built into space itself, encouraging expansion to continue and slowly increase over time. For a long time, the effect of dark energy was hidden because when the universe was smaller and denser, gravity dominated the cosmic balance, keeping expansion slower and more restrained, masking the influence of this quieter force. As space expanded and matter thinned, the influence of gravity weakened, allowing dark energy to become more apparent, not by changing suddenly, but by remaining steady while other influences faded. This means that dark energy did not suddenly appear. It was always there, woven into the structure of space, patiently waiting for the universe to grow large enough for its effect to be felt. There is something deeply calming about this idea, a force that does not rush, does not fluctuate wildly, and does not demand attention, yet gently shapes the destiny of the universe simply by being present everywhere at once. Dark energy reminds us that not all influences are visible or loud. Some of the most important effects in the universe operate quietly, shaping outcomes over immense spans of time without ever announcing themselves. As you rest with this thought, imagine space itself holding a soft, expansive tendency, like a slow outward breath that never fully ends, steady and unforced. The universe does not struggle against this influence. It flows with it, expanding calmly, allowing time to pass, distances to grow, and complexity to gradually soften, inviting the mind to follow that same quiet openness toward rest and stillness. Dark energy does not announce itself with dramatic signs, yet its presence quietly guides the future behavior of the universe, shaping how expansion unfolds over immense stretches of time, not through sudden change, but through steady influence that becomes clearer the longer the universe exists. Because dark energy appears to be evenly distributed throughout space, its effect does not weaken as the universe grows. Instead, it remains constant while matter becomes more diluted, allowing its role to gradually become more dominant in determining the overall motion of cosmic expansion. This creates a universe where expansion slowly accelerates, not in a sharp or violent way, but in a smooth, continuous manner, as if space itself gently leans toward becoming larger, simply because that is its natural condition. Galaxies do not feel this influence directly. Stars continue to shine, systems remain stable, and local gravity keeps familiar structures intact. Yet, on the largest scales, the distance between galaxy groups increases at an ever so slightly faster pace as time moves forward. This acceleration does not mean the universe is racing toward an ending. It means the universe is calmly opening, giving more and more room between distant regions, allowing the cosmic landscape to become quieter and more spacious over time. As expansion continues, light traveling between galaxies must cross increasingly large distances, meaning fewer signals reach across the universe, and distant regions slowly drift beyond each other's observable reach without any abrupt separation. This gradual isolation is not sudden or dramatic. It unfolds over billions of years, so slowly that it feels more like a fading than a loss, a gentle softening of connection rather than a break. The influence of dark energy suggests that the future universe will be larger, calmer, and more diffuse, with vast quiet spaces between islands of structure, a place where motion continues but interaction becomes rarer. There is no sense of collapse or instability in this picture, only a steady movement towards simplicity. Where energy spreads out, temperatures slowly decrease, and the universe settles into a long, quiet state. This vision can feel peaceful rather than unsettling, because it describes a universe that is not fighting itself, not tearing apart, but gradually relaxing, like a body easing into rest after a long day. As you listen, it may help to imagine expansion not as separation, but as spaciousness, the creation of room rather than distance, a widening that allows everything to exist without pressure or urgency. In this way, dark energy becomes less a mysterious force and more a quiet guide, shaping the universe towards stillness and calm, and gently reminding the mind that even the largest futures unfold slowly, patiently, and without demand, making it easier to let go and drift towards sleep. When the universe is viewed on its largest scales, far beyond individual stars and even beyond single galaxies, a remarkable pattern begins to appear, one that is not random or scattered, but gently organized into vast structures shaped by the slow expansion of space and the quiet pull of gravity over immense periods of time. Galaxies are not distributed evenly like grains of sand. Instead, they form long filaments, broad sheets, and enormous clusters, leaving behind vast empty regions known as cosmic voids, creating a structure that resembles a delicate web stretched across the universe, calm and balanced rather than chaotic. This cosmic web did not form suddenly. It emerged gradually as the universe expanded and cooled, allowing matter to slowly gather under gravity in some regions, while other regions became increasingly empty as space stretched and carried matter away from them. Expansion plays a central role in shaping this structure, because as space grows, it amplifies differences that already exist. Regions that are slightly denser attract more matter, while regions that are slightly emptier become even more sparse, all happening slowly and smoothly without sharp boundaries. The filaments of galaxies stretch across millions of light years, connecting clusters like quiet bridges of light and matter, while the voids between them grow larger over time as expansion gently opens space where little matter resides. These voids are not failures of structure. They are part of the design, allowing the universe to balance itself, distributing matter and space in a way that remains stable over billions of years while continuing to expand. From within a single galaxy, this large-scale order is impossible to see directly. Much like a single cell cannot perceive the shape of the body it belongs to. Yet through careful observation and mapping, this calm organization becomes clear. The existence of such structure tells us that expansion does not erase patterns. Instead, it preserves and stretches them, allowing complexity to exist even as distances increase. A reminder that growth and order can coexist. As the universe continues to expand, these large-scale structures slowly drift farther apart, their connections thinning, their interactions becoming less frequent. Yet their internal shapes remain intact for extremely long periods. This gradual separation does not involve tearing or collapse. It is more like a gentle loosening, a slow easing of tension as space becomes more generous and forgiving. Energy within these structures continues to spread out. Stars slowly age, galaxies evolve. But the overall pattern remains recognizable, carried forward by expansion rather than destroyed by it. There is something deeply calming about this image of the universe, a vast web slowly stretching, never snapping, never rushing, maintaining balance while allowing space to grow quietly around it. As you rest with this idea, imagine the universe as an enormous breathing structure, filaments and voids expanding together, maintaining harmony while gently increasing in scale. This slow and orderly unfolding mirrors natural rhythms found everywhere. Growth without strain, change without urgency, motion without noise, inviting the mind to relax into the understanding that even on the largest scales, the universe chooses patience, and that same patience is available to you now as thought softens and awareness drifts towards sleep. Within this vast expanding structure, it is natural to wonder where we are, not in a dramatic or emotional sense, but in a calm physical sense. How a small familiar place like Earth fits into a universe that is constantly growing and quietly reshaping its distances. We live on a planet that orbits an ordinary star, located in a spiral galaxy made of hundreds of billions of stars, and this galaxy itself is not isolated. It belongs to a small group of neighboring galaxies bound together by gravity, moving together through expanding space as a calm collective rather than as separate drifting objects. This local group is held tightly enough that cosmic expansion does not pull it apart. Gravity within the group is stronger than the slow stretching of space at these scales, allowing galaxies to orbit each other and interact over billions of years without being carried away. Our galaxy, the Milky Way, sits within one of the filaments of the cosmic web, a gently curved strand of matter and light that stretches across enormous distances, connecting us indirectly to far larger clusters of galaxies that lie beyond our immediate neighborhood. From our position inside the Milky Way, expansion is not something we feel or see directly. The stars around us remain in stable patterns. The night sky changes only subtly across generations, and nothing in daily life suggests that space itself is slowly increasing in scale. Yet beyond our local region, expansion becomes undeniable. Galaxies outside our group appear to move away from us, not because we are special, but because from any galaxy the same pattern would appear. expansion revealing itself evenly in every direction. This means that our location is not central and not peripheral. It is simply one point among countless others, each experiencing the universe in the same quiet way, surrounded by expanding space and distant galaxies slowly drifting farther apart. There is something deeply grounding in this realization. The universe does not revolve around us, yet it includes us completely, allowing complex structures like galaxies, stars, planets, and life to exist calmly within its slow unfolding. Being embedded in an expanding universe does not make our existence fragile. Instead, it highlights how stable small systems can be, protected by local forces even as the largest scales continue to change. The expansion of space does not tug at our atoms or stretch our bodies. It does not disturb oceans or mountains. It operates far beyond the scale of human experience, reminding us that not all change is personal or immediate. Our place in the universe is defined not by position, but by connection. We are connected to nearby stars by gravity, to distant galaxies by light, and to the universe as a whole by the same expanding space that carries everything forward together. When we look into the night sky, we are not looking out from the center of something. We are looking across layers of distance and time, seeing light that has traveled through expanding space to reach us, quietly telling us where we are without needing words. This perspective can feel humbling, but it can also be deeply calming because it removes pressure. There is no need to be central, no need to be permanent. Existence itself is enough. As you settle into rest, it may help to imagine your place not as small or insignificant, but as gently held within a vast, stable structure, a quiet point inside a universe that expands patiently, making room for stars to shine, for planets to turn, and for minds to rest, knowing they belong exactly where they are, carried softly by the slow and steady growth of space itself. When the idea of an expanding universe settles into the mind, a natural and quiet question follows. If the universe is expanding, does it have an edge, a boundary, a place where it ends and something else begins? Or is expansion happening without any outer limit at all? This question feels simple, yet it reaches deep into how we understand space itself. Because limits and edges make sense in everyday life. Rooms have walls, oceans have shores, objects have surfaces. But the universe does not behave like an object inside a larger container. The universe does not expand into something else. There is no surrounding space waiting beyond it, because space itself is part of the universe, meaning that when the universe expands, it is not moving outward into emptiness. It is increasing its own internal distances everywhere at once. Because of this, the idea of an edge becomes less meaningful. There is no known boundary where space stops, no cosmic wall where expansion meets resistance. Instead, space appears to continue smoothly and evenly as far as observation allows. What does exist is a limit to what we can observe, not because the universe ends, but because light needs time to travel, and the universe has a finite age, meaning that light from extremely distant regions has not had enough time to reach us yet. This creates what is called the observable universe, a sphere of space centered on the observer, defined not by physical boundaries, but by the maximum distance light could have traveled since the universe began expanding. Beyond this observable region, the universe may continue in the same way, expanding calmly, filled with galaxies and structures similar to those we see. But they remain beyond our reach, not hidden, simply too distant in time and space. As expansion continues, this observable limit changes, not by revealing everything, but by slowly altering which regions remain connected to us through light, with some distant areas gradually slipping beyond our ability to observe as space between us grows. This does not mean those regions disappear. It means the universe becomes more spacious, and connections become quieter, a gentle fading of interaction rather than a sudden separation. The absence of a known edge can feel unsettling at first, yet it can also be deeply peaceful because it removes the idea of confinement. The universe is not boxed in, not restricted, not surrounded by pressure. It simply exists as an ever-stretching whole. In this view, expansion is not a race toward a boundary. It is a condition of existence, space expressing its ability to grow without limit or urgency. The universe does not ask to be completed or finished. It does not need an outer shape to justify itself. It unfolds naturally, guided by simple principles rather than constraints. For the mind preparing to rest, this can be a comforting thought. There is no edge to reach, no final wall to confront, only continuity. Space leading into more space, time flowing into more time. Just as sleep does not require a destination, only a letting go, the universe does not expand toward an endpoint. It expands because expansion is what it does. As you allow this idea to settle, imagine space stretching smoothly without boundaries, without corners, without resistance. A calm, infinite softness that holds everything without effort. In that vast openness, there is no pressure to understand everything. No need to reach the limits of thought. Awareness can simply float, carried by the same gentle expansion that moves galaxies apart, while allowing the mind to drift inward toward stillness and sleep. In an expanding universe, the idea of distance cannot be separated from the idea of light, because light is the messenger that connects one region of space to another, and without it, the universe would remain silent and unseen, no matter how large or active it became. Light does not travel instantly. It moves at a constant and finite speed, calm and unwavering, crossing space step by step, wave by wave, and because of this, every act of seeing is also an act of looking into the past. When light leaves a distant star or galaxy, it begins a long, quiet journey, moving through space that is itself slowly expanding, meaning that by the time the light arrives, the universe is no longer exactly as it was when that light first began its path. This creates a natural limit to what we can observe, not because our instruments are insufficient, but because time itself sets a boundary. Light from regions beyond a certain distance simply has not had enough time to reach us yet. The speed of light therefore defines the size of the observable universe, a region shaped not by walls or edges, but by duration, by how long the universe has existed, and how far light could have traveled during that time. As the universe expands, this relationship becomes even more subtle, because space stretching means that some regions are carried away faster than light traveling toward us can compensate. Not because light slows down, but because the distance itself grows while light is in motion. This does not violate any rules or create paradoxes. It simply reflects the fact that expansion affects distance rather than speed, allowing space between regions to increase in a way that gently limits communication without force. Because of this, there are galaxies whose light will never reach us, not because they disappear or stop shining, but because the expanding space between us becomes too great for light to cross in the time available. This idea can sound dramatic, yet it unfolds quietly, without visible change, without sudden loss. Connections fade gradually as expansion continues, like distant sounds softening until they are no longer heard. Within our observable universe, light continues to arrive from many distances and many times, allowing us to see layers of cosmic history at once, nearby stars as they are now, distant galaxies as they were long ago. Every point of light in the sky represents a different age of the universe, a different moment carried forward through expanding space until it gently reaches awareness. This layered vision gives the universe depth not only in space but in time, turning the night sky into a calm archive of existence rather than a flat image. The speed of light does not rush this process. It remains steady, patient, never changing, allowing the universe to reveal itself slowly rather than all at once. There is something deeply soothing in this limitation. The universe does not overwhelm us with everything at the same time. It reveals itself gradually, according to the calm pace of light. Just as sleep arrives not instantly, but through a gentle fading of awareness, cosmic understanding arrives through light that has traveled long distances, softened by time and expansion. As you rest with this idea, imagine light drifting calmly across space, never hurrying, never stopping, carrying quiet stories from distant places, arriving only when the universe allows. The limit of seeing is not a failure, it is a kindness, shaping experience into something manageable and gentle. In this way, the universe invites rest, offering knowledge slowly, softly, wave by wave, allowing the mind to relax into the darkness, knowing that not everything needs to be seen at once, and that beyond what is visible, space continues peacefully, expanding in silence, while awareness drifts inward, guided by the same steady rhythm that carries light across the cosmos and thought towards sleep. In an expanding universe, distance is never only about space, it is also about time, because every beam of light that reaches us has traveled for a duration that cannot be separated from the size and age of the universe itself, turning observation into a quiet form of time travel that happens naturally and without effort. When you look at a nearby star, the light reaching your eyes left that star years ago, and when you look at a distant galaxy, the light may have begun its journey millions or even billions of years in the past, meaning you are not seeing the universe as it is now, but as it once was, preserved, gently in motion. This effect is not a trick or an illusion. It is a direct consequence of light having a finite speed and space having a history, and together, they create a layered universe where different distances reveal different moments in time, all visible at once in the calm darkness of the sky. The farther you look, the further back you see, because light from more distant regions has traveled longer, crossing expanding space that was smaller and denser when the journey began, quietly carrying a snapshot of an earlier universe forward into the present. This means that the observable universe is also a timeline, where nearby objects represent recent moments and distant objects represent ancient ones, allowing us to observe cosmic history not by memory or reconstruction, but directly through light itself. In the earliest visible regions, we see galaxies when they were young, closer together, more active, formed from a universe that had not yet expanded into its current spacious state, revealing how expansion has gradually reshaped structure over time. These ancient views show a universe that was warmer, denser, and more energetic, not chaotic, but more tightly packed, where distances were smaller and interactions between galaxies were more frequent. As expansion continued, space opened, interactions became rarer, and structures settled into calmer patterns, a transition that can be traced simply by observing objects at increasing distances, and therefore increasing ages. This ability to look backward through space allows us to understand expansion not as an abstract idea, but as a lived process, one that left visible marks at every stage of cosmic history, patiently recorded in traveling light. There is something deeply reassuring about this, because it shows that the universe remembers itself, not in a conscious way, but through consistent physical behavior, allowing its past to remain accessible rather than lost. The universe does not hide its history. It reveals it slowly, layer by layer, according to distance, offering understanding only to those willing to look calmly and wait. In this sense, looking into the night sky is not an act of searching for answers. It is an act of listening, allowing ancient light to arrive in its own time, carrying quiet stories shaped by expansion and age. This layered visibility also explains why the universe feels deep rather than flat, why space feels filled with meaning even when it appears dark. because every dark region may be filled with light that has not yet arrived or has already passed. Time in the universe is not stacked neatly. It is spread out across space, and expansion gently stretches this spread, creating ever wider separations between moments as well as between places. As expansion continues, the universe slowly moves away from its dense beginnings, carrying its history outward and thinning it across larger volumes of space, making each moment more spacious than the last. For the mind at rest, this idea can feel soothing, because it reframes time not as something chasing us forward, but as something laid out gently around us, accessible through distance rather than pressure. There is no need to hurry through time in a universe where the past remains visible, quietly traveling toward us at the steady pace of light. As you allow this understanding to settle, imagine yourself resting beneath a sky filled with ancient light, each point a message from another time, arriving calmly. Without urgency, without demand, the universe does not rush its stories. It tells them slowly across expanding space, and in listening to them, the mind can relax, knowing that understanding arrives not through effort, but through patience, just as sleep arrives not by force, but by allowing awareness to drift gently backward, away from the present moment, into quiet and rest. As the universe expands, one of its most striking qualities becomes more apparent, not through brightness or motion, but through quietness, a deep and steady silence that grows alongside distance, shaping the overall feeling of the cosmos in a way that is subtle yet profound. On the largest scales, the universe is not loud or crowded. It is spacious and calm, with vast regions containing very little matter, where light travels for millions of years without encountering anything at all, moving through expanding space that offers no resistance and no sound. This quietness is not emptiness in a negative sense. It is openness, a condition created by expansion that allows the universe to soften over time, reducing density, spreading energy, and gently lowering intensity across immense distances. As galaxies move farther apart due to expansion, interactions become less frequent, collisions rarer, and large-scale activity gradually slows, not because the universe is losing vitality, but because it is relaxing into a broader and more spacious state. This gradual calming can be understood as a natural outcome of expansion. When space increases, energy spreads out, temperatures decrease, and extremes soften, allowing the universe to move toward balance rather than disorder. Silence in space is not the absence of activity. Stars still shine, galaxies still rotate, light still travels, but these actions occur within an environment that absorbs motion rather than amplifying it, creating an overall sense of stillness. Depth also increases as expansion continues. Not just physical depth, but perceptual depth, because distance creates layers, foreground and background, near and far, now and long ago, all existing together in a calm arrangement. When we observe the universe, we are not seeing a flat scene. We are looking into a deep structure shaped by time and expansion, where every layer represents a different era and a different scale of existence. This layered depth is one reason the universe feels so vast, not because it overwhelms the senses, but because it invites the mind to slow down, to move gently from one layer to another, without urgency. Expansion does not flatten the universe, it gives it dimension, allowing space to open in a way that creates perspective rather than chaos. As space grows, signals weaken, brightness fades with distance, and the universe becomes quieter not suddenly, but gradually, like sound fading in a large open room rather than stopping abruptly. This fading is not loss. It is diffusion, energy, spreading across greater space, allowing calm to dominate over intensity. The expanding universe does not strive to hold everything close. It allows separation without conflict, distance without loneliness, because structure remains where it is needed and quiet fills the rest. There is something deeply restful about this balance, activity where it belongs, silence where it can exist freely. For the human mind, this cosmic quiet can feel familiar, because rest and sleep also involve a softening of intensity, a reduction of noise, a widening of inner space. Just as thoughts become less dense and less urgent as sleep approaches, the universe becomes less dense and less active as expansion continues, not ending, but easing. This parallel is not accidental. Both follow the same principle, that stability and rest emerge when space is allowed to grow. As you listen, imagine the universe stretching into greater quiet, stars shining calmly within vast dark regions, light drifting slowly, distances increasing without tension. There is no pressure in this expansion, no sound announcing it, only a steady widening that creates room for stillness. Allow that stillness to mirror itself inside awareness, letting thoughts drift farther apart, letting mental space open gently, knowing that just as the universe does not need to hurry, neither do you. In this expanding quiet, depth replaces noise, patience replaces urgency, and rest becomes not an action, but a natural state, supported by the same slow and steady growth that shapes the universe itself. Even though the universe is expanding everywhere at once, this expansion is not something we feel in our bodies or notice in daily experience. And understanding why requires gently separating the scales of the universe into layers that behave very differently while remaining part of the same whole. On small scales, the forces that hold things together are immensely stronger than the slow stretching of space. Atoms are bound by electrical forces. Molecules form stable structures. Cells maintain their shapes, and gravity keeps planets, stars, and galaxies intact, creating pockets of stability within an otherwise expanding universe. The expansion of space is incredibly gentle, so gentle that over the distance of a human body, or even the size of a planet, its effect is completely overwhelmed by local forces that act instantly and powerfully to maintain structure and balance. This means that while space itself is expanding, it does so in a way that respects existing bonds, never pulling apart what is already held together. Instead, it operates where resistance is minimal, in the vast distances between galaxy clusters where gravity no longer dominates. Expansion becomes noticeable only when distances are enormous, millions or billions of light years across, where the cumulative effect of space stretching has time and room to accumulate without being countered by stronger forces. In daily life, we measure change through movement, through shifts that happen within seconds or minutes. Yet, cosmic expansion unfolds across timescales so long that entire human histories pass without producing any perceptible effect at familiar scales. The Earth does not expand away from the Sun. The Moon does not drift outward due to cosmic expansion, and the Milky Way does not stretch apart internally, because gravity within these systems is vastly stronger than the expansion acting across them. This separation of scales is what allows the universe to be both dynamic and stable at the same time, expanding on the largest scales while remaining calm and structured on the smallest ones. There is no conflict between these behaviors. They coexist naturally, like slow geological change beneath a stable landscape, or deep ocean currents flowing beneath a calm surface. Because expansion does not announce itself locally. It does not disrupt life. It does not create instability. And it does not interfere with the rhythms that organisms depend on, allowing complexity to flourish even as the universe grows larger. This hidden nature of expansion can be comforting, because it shows that change does not always require sensation. Some of the most profound transformations happen quietly, without demanding attention or response. The universe does not insist on being noticed as it expands. It continues regardless of observation, following simple rules that operate consistently whether or not anyone is watching. For the human mind, this can be a reassuring thought. Not everything important needs to be felt or managed. Some processes simply unfold in the background, supporting existence rather than challenging it. Just as the body continues to regulate breathing and heartbeat during sleep without conscious effort, the universe continues to expand without disturbing the structures it supports. This parallel invites trust in systems that operate beyond awareness, trust in stability even within change. As you allow this idea to settle, it may become easier to relax into the night, knowing that even in a universe defined by motion, stillness is preserved where it matters. Expansion does not pull you apart. It does not disturb your rest. It happens far beyond the scale of concern, creating spaciousness without intrusion. In this way, the universe teaches a quiet lesson: that growth does not have to be felt to be real, and that calm can exist alongside vast unseen change. Let that lesson ease the mind, allowing thoughts to remain bound gently together, while space opens calmly around them, just as the universe expands peacefully while holding its structures intact, making room for rest, for breath, and for sleep to arrive naturally without effort. When we think about the future of an expanding universe, it is helpful to release the idea of sudden endings or dramatic conclusions, because cosmic change unfolds with patience, guided by simple tendencies rather than abrupt events, allowing the future to emerge gradually from the same calm rules that shape the present. The future of the universe depends on how expansion continues, not as a single fixed outcome, but as a range of gentle possibilities shaped by the balance between matter, energy, and the persistent influence that encourages space to grow larger over time. One possibility is a universe that continues expanding indefinitely, becoming more spacious, more diffuse, and more quiet. Where galaxies drift farther apart, interactions become increasingly rare, and vast regions of space grow calm and dark without any sudden collapse or disruption. In such a future, stars continue to form for a very long time, then gradually become less common as the raw material for star formation spreads thinner across expanding space, leading to a universe that grows dimmer but not chaotic, quieter but not unstable. This gradual dimming is not an ending in the dramatic sense. It is a slow settling where energy spreads out evenly, temperatures decrease gently, and extremes soften into balance, creating a long-lasting state of calm rather than destruction. Another possibility considers changes in the pace of expansion, not sudden reversals, but subtle shifts that could alter how quickly space grows, shaping how distant regions remain connected or slowly drift beyond one another's reach. Even in these scenarios, the universe does not tear itself apart. It adjusts, guided by consistent relationships that operate over billions of years, allowing plenty of time for structure, complexity, and quiet evolution to continue. The idea of a future universe often sounds abstract, yet it is deeply grounded in present behavior, because the same expansion observed today carries forward, step by step, into tomorrow, next year, and far beyond any human timescale. What is important is not predicting a final outcome, but recognizing the nature of the process. The universe does not hurry toward a finish. It follows a steady path shaped by balance rather than urgency. This perspective removes fear from cosmic futures, replacing it with continuity. The understanding that whatever the universe becomes, it will arrive there slowly, allowing change to be absorbed without shock. The universe has no deadline, no requirement to conclude, no pressure to resolve itself. It exists as a process rather than a project, unfolding according to its nature rather than an external plan. As expansion continues, space becomes more generous, distances increase, and interactions soften, creating an environment where calm dominates over intensity. For the mind, this mirrors the approach of rest. Thoughts spread out, urgency fades, and awareness becomes more spacious. Not because something is ending, but because space is being made. The future of the universe is not a single moment waiting ahead. It is an extension of the present, carried forward gently by the same slow expansion that has always been there. This continuity can feel reassuring, because it suggests that existence does not need to rush toward meaning or closure. It can simply continue, moment after moment, expanding quiet. As you listen, imagine the universe breathing outward into the future, each moment adding a little more space, a little more quiet, without tension or demand. There is no final wall approaching, no dramatic signal, only ongoing expansion, steady and calm, allowing the universe to become ever more spacious over time. Let this idea settle into awareness. The future does not press toward us, it unfolds slowly, and just as the universe does not need to hurry, neither does the mind. In this shared rhythm of gradual expansion, rest becomes natural, the present moment stretches gently, and sleep approaches not as an ending, but as a continuation. A soft widening of inner space guided by the same patient motion that carries galaxies apart, while holding the universe together in quiet balance. As the universe continues to expand, one of its most consistent and gentle consequences is cooling, not a sudden loss of energy, but a slow and natural thinning of warmth and activity as space grows larger and energy spreads across an ever-increasing volume. In the early universe, everything was closer together, energy was concentrated, interactions were frequent, and temperatures were much higher, yet expansion gradually changed this state, not by removing energy, but by giving it more room to exist. When space expands, the same amount of energy is shared across a larger region, causing temperatures to slowly decrease, a process that happens smoothly and predictably over immense spans of time, without sharp drops or instability. This cooling does not mean the universe becomes lifeless or inactive. It means processes slow down, extremes soften, and change becomes more gradual, allowing long-lasting stability rather than sudden transformation. Stars continue to shine because local conditions remain strong enough to support them. Gravity still gathers matter, nuclear reactions still occur, yet the overall background of the universe becomes calmer and less intense as expansion continues. Light traveling through expanding space also contributes to this cooling because as wavelengths stretch, energy spreads out, making the universe quieter in both temperature and radiation over time. This gradual thinning of energy creates a universe that becomes increasingly spacious and gentle, where violent events become rarer and long periods of calm dominate cosmic history. The cooling universe is not rushing toward emptiness. It is easing into balance, allowing energy to disperse evenly rather than remain tightly packed. There is no moment when the universe suddenly becomes cold. Instead, cooling is always happening, quietly and continuously, like a slow evening breeze that lowers the temperature without being noticed. As expansion continues, matter becomes more isolated. Stars are farther apart, galaxies interact less often, and the universe transitions into a state where change happens slowly and predictably. This thinning does not erase structure. Galaxies remain intact for incredibly long periods. Stars live out their lifetimes. Planets continue their orbits, all supported by local forces that remain strong even as the background universe becomes more spacious. The overall trend is toward calm rather than collapse, toward simplicity rather than chaos, a universe that gradually settles rather than breaks apart. For the mind preparing for sleep, this cosmic cooling offers a familiar rhythm, activity giving way to stillness, intensity softening into quiet, movement slowing into rest. Just as the body cools slightly as sleep approaches, the universe cools as expansion continues, following the same natural principle of easing rather than forcing. This parallel reminds us that cooling is not loss, it is transition, a movement toward a state where energy is evenly shared and extremes no longer dominate. As you rest with this idea, imagine the universe slowly releasing tension, spreading warmth gently, allowing everything to exist without pressure. The expanding universe does not burn itself out. It relaxes, becoming broader, calmer, and quieter with time. Let that image guide awareness inward, letting thoughts thin out, letting mental space grow larger, knowing that just as the universe cools naturally, rest arrives without effort, supported by the same slow and steady unfolding that shapes stars, galaxies, and the vast spaces between them. As the universe expands and distances slowly increase, the night sky itself is not a fixed picture, even though it feels stable across human lifetimes, because over immense stretches of time, the arrangement of galaxies and the light reaching us gradually changes, reshaping what the universe looks like to any observer who waits long enough. The stars within our own galaxy will continue to appear familiar for a very long time, because local gravity keeps them bound together, allowing constellations to change only subtly over thousands and millions of years. Yet beyond our galaxy, the larger universe is quietly rearranging itself through expansion. Distant galaxies slowly drift farther away, and as they do, their light becomes fainter and more stretched, until eventually some of them fade beyond visibility, not because they disappear, but because the expanding space between us becomes too large for their light to continue reaching us. This fading is extremely slow, so slow that no human generation will notice it directly. Yet across billions of years, the sky becomes less crowded. Fewer distant galaxies remain visible, and the universe appears calmer and darker than before. What remains visible becomes more local, nearby stars, nearby galaxies, structures bound by gravity that expansion cannot pull apart, creating a sky that slowly turns inward rather than outward. The changing night sky is not a sign of loss. It is a sign of expansion creating distance, allowing regions of the universe to become more independent and quiet as time passes. In the far future, observers would see a universe that feels smaller, not because it truly is smaller, but because fewer distant signals remain accessible, leaving behind a more intimate cosmic environment shaped by what remains connected through light. This process does not happen suddenly. There is no moment when the sky goes dark. Instead, brightness gently thins, points of light slowly soften, and the background quiet deepens. The universe does not erase its beauty. It changes how that beauty is presented, moving from crowded complexity toward spacious simplicity. For the mind, this mirrors the process of falling asleep, where thoughts gradually fade, not all at once, but one by one, leaving behind a quieter inner landscape. Just as sleep does not remove awareness but softens it, cosmic expansion does not remove the universe. It softens its visibility, allowing stillness to dominate. The night sky of the distant future will not feel empty. It will feel calm, defined by a few familiar lights rather than overwhelming distance. This transformation reminds us that change does not always add. Sometimes it subtracts gently, creating clarity rather than absence. As you imagine the night sky slowly simplifying, allow the same process to occur within awareness, letting unnecessary thoughts drift away, leaving only a few steady points of attention. The universe teaches patience here, showing that even the sky itself is allowed to rest, becoming quieter with time. In that quiet future sky, expansion continues silently. Space grows, and the remaining lights shine calmly without competition. Let this image guide the mind toward rest, knowing that just as the universe does not cling to every distant light, awareness does not need to hold every thought. Both are allowed to simplify, to soften, to become quieter, supported by the same slow expansion that carries galaxies apart while allowing stillness to deepen naturally. As the universe expands and distances grow ever larger, a quiet emotional idea sometimes emerges alongside the scientific one: the idea of loneliness on a cosmic scale. The sense that as galaxies drift farther apart, the universe becomes emptier, more isolated, and more distant from itself. Yet this feeling comes not from the universe itself, but from how the human mind interprets distance. Distance in the universe is not separation in the human sense. It does not imply abandonment or loss. It is simply space becoming more spacious, a natural condition that allows regions to exist without interference or pressure, creating calm rather than absence. When galaxies move away from each other due to expansion, they are not leaving something behind. They are remaining exactly where they are within their own local structures, carried gently by space that grows between them, not pushed away by intention or force. The feeling of loneliness arises when distance is interpreted as disconnection. Yet in the universe, connection does not depend on closeness alone. It depends on shared structure, shared laws, and shared origin, all of which remain unchanged regardless of how large space becomes. Every region of the universe follows the same patterns, the same behaviors of light, matter, time, and expansion, meaning that no part of the universe is truly isolated in its nature, even if it becomes distant in space. Expansion does not create chaos or fragmentation. It creates order through scale, allowing systems to exist independently while remaining part of the same whole. Much like thoughts within a calm mind that drift apart without losing coherence, the universe does not mourn growing distances. It does not register loss when regions drift beyond visibility. It simply continues unfolding according to its structure, without emotion, but also without conflict. From a wider perspective, expansion increases freedom rather than loneliness. It gives space room to breathe. It allows energy to spread without crowding, and it reduces the intensity of interaction that could otherwise lead to instability. This spaciousness is not emptiness. It is openness, a condition where existence is allowed to be without constant interaction or demand. For the human mind, this can be reframed not as isolation, but as peace. A universe that does not press inward, does not overwhelm, and does not require constant connection to remain whole. Just as silence in a room does not mean something is missing, cosmic quiet does not mean the universe lacks meaning. It means meaning exists without noise. Loneliness is a feeling that arises when connection is expected and not found. Yet the universe does not expect connection in the human sense. It exists as a continuous field where distance does not break belonging. Every particle in the universe shares the same history of expansion, the same unfolding of time, and the same physical laws, creating a deep unity that distance cannot erase. This unity is not visible, it is structural, woven into how space behaves and how light travels, binding the universe together without the need for closeness. As expansion continues and the universe becomes more spacious, it does not become less complete, it becomes more settled, more calm, and more balanced. For someone preparing for sleep, this idea can be deeply reassuring because it suggests that being alone does not mean being disconnected, and quiet does not mean absence. Just as the mind can rest in stillness without losing awareness, the universe can expand into quiet without losing coherence. There is no loneliness in space itself, only distance, and distance is simply room. Allow this understanding to soften any tension that distance might bring, letting the idea of vastness feel spacious rather than empty. In the same way that night creates room for rest, cosmic expansion creates room for existence to unfold gently. As awareness drifts inward, it may help to imagine the universe not as separating, but as opening, offering more and more space where nothing needs to be reached, nothing needs to be held, and nothing needs to be close in order to belong. In this open universe, calm replaces concern, distance replaces pressure, and rest becomes natural. supported by the same quiet expansion that carries galaxies apart while holding the whole together in steady, silent unity. When the mind begins to hold the idea of an expanding universe for long enough, something subtle happens. Awareness itself shifts scale. Everyday concerns soften slightly, not because they disappear, but because they are placed inside a much larger and calmer context where urgency loses its grip. Human awareness evolved to navigate short distances and short times, to focus on immediate surroundings and near futures. Yet the universe invites awareness to stretch, gently and without effort, into scales where billions of years pass as quietly as a breath, and distances grow without intention or strain. In this wider scale, expansion is not threatening, it is stabilizing. It shows that change does not always demand reaction, and that motion does not always require control. Some processes simply continue according to their nature, while everything else remains supported. The human mind often searches for fixed points, permanent anchors that promise certainty, yet the expanding universe offers a different kind of stability, one based not on stillness, but on consistency, the same patterns repeating calmly across all space and time. No matter where you are in the universe, the same laws apply. Light behaves the same. Space expands the same. Time flows the same, creating a deep reliability that does not depend on location or era. This reliability is quiet. It does not announce itself. Yet it holds everything together more firmly than any single structure ever could, allowing awareness to rest without needing to grasp onto permanence. When awareness aligns with this scale, worries naturally lose some of their intensity, because they are revealed as local and temporary, within a system that has room for all things to arise and pass without disruption. Expansion teaches that growth does not require effort. Space grows because it can, not because it must. And this lesson can gently reflect inward, suggesting that rest does not need to be achieved. It arrives when resistance fades, in the same way that the universe does not struggle to expand. The mind does not need to struggle to sleep. Both follow natural tendencies that unfold when allowed. Human awareness often contracts under pressure. Thoughts crowd together, attention narrows, yet expansion offers the opposite movement. Thoughts drift apart, mental space opens, and clarity emerges without force. This is not emptiness. It is spaciousness, the same kind of spaciousness that exists between galaxies, allowing structure where needed and quiet where possible. Within this spacious awareness, identity feels less rigid, not lost, but softened, less defined by urgency and more by presence. The universe does not demand that awareness be large or small, important or insignificant. It simply includes it as part of the same expanding fabric. You are not separate from cosmic expansion. Your body exists within it. Your thoughts arise within it. Your rest unfolds within the same space that carries galaxies apart. This realization does not diminish human experience. It supports it, because it removes the pressure to be central or permanent. Just as a single star does not need to illuminate the entire universe to be complete, a single moment of awareness does not need to hold everything to be meaningful. Expansion allows meaning to exist locally without needing to dominate globally. As awareness settles into this understanding, there is a sense of permission to be small without being lost, to be quiet without being absent, to rest without needing justification. The universe holds awareness the same way it holds stars, gently, without instruction, allowing it to shine for a time and then soften. As you listen, let awareness expand slightly, not outward toward thought, but inward toward calm, allowing mental space to open naturally. There is no need to follow every idea, just as there is no need to observe every galaxy. The universe continues expanding whether or not it is watched, and rest arrives whether or not it is managed. In this shared rhythm, human awareness finds a place that is neither central nor insignificant, but simply present, carried by the same quiet expansion that shapes everything else. Let that presence be enough, letting thoughts drift like distant lights, separated by growing space, until awareness rests comfortably within itself, supported by the vast calm scale of the universe. As the universe continues its quiet expansion through time, there is a gentle parallel unfolding much closer. The way awareness loosens its grip and drifts towards sleep, not through effort or intention, but through a natural widening that allows thoughts to separate and soften. Sleep is not a shutdown, just as expansion is not an ending. Sleep is a change of state, a widening of inner space where sharp focus fades and boundaries become less defined, allowing the mind to rest while the body remains supported and whole. In the same way that the universe does not expand by pushing against something, the mind does not fall asleep by forcing itself to stop thinking. Sleep arrives when resistance fades and space is allowed to grow between thoughts. Time during sleep behaves differently. Minutes and hours lose their sharp edges. Moments blend together, and awareness drifts without tracking duration, mirroring how cosmic time stretches smoothly without markers or urgency. The universe expands evenly everywhere, and sleep spreads evenly through awareness, not targeting specific thoughts, not choosing what to keep or discard, simply allowing everything to become more spacious. Just as galaxies remain intact while space between them grows, memories and identity remain intact while the space between thoughts increases, creating calm without loss. There is no need to hold on to ideas, because expansion does not erase what exists. It only gives it more room. Sleep does the same. It does not remove awareness. It places it within a wider, quieter field. As the universe ages, it becomes less dense, less crowded, and more calm. And as sleep deepens, the mind becomes less crowded, less urgent, and more still. This is not emptiness. It is balance. A state where energy is evenly distributed, where nothing is demanding attention, and where everything is allowed to exist without pressure. The expanding universe teaches that change does not require struggle, and sleep reflects this lesson perfectly, arriving only when effort is released. You do not need to reach sleep, just as the universe does not need to reach its future. Both unfold naturally. Expansion continues whether it is observed or not, and sleep arrives whether it is planned or not, guided by the same principle of allowing rather than controlling. In the vast timeline of the universe, sleep is a small event, yet it follows the same rhythm, a soft transition supported by time and space. As awareness drifts, thoughts become like distant galaxies, still present but separated by growing inner distance, their voices quieter, their pull weaker. Breath becomes slower, attention wider, and the sense of self less tightly defined, not disappearing, just resting. The universe does not judge its expansion. It does not question its pace. It simply continues, and sleep asks the same. No evaluation, no urgency, only continuation. There is nothing to complete tonight, nothing to solve, nothing to hold. The universe expanded before you were aware of it, and it will expand while you sleep, steady and patient, carrying everything gently forward. As you rest, time stretches softly, inner space opens, and awareness settles into a wider, quieter state, supported by the same calm structure that holds stars, galaxies, and the vast distances between them. Sleep does not pull you away from the universe. It places you deeper within it, aligned with its rhythm, matching its pace. The universe expands without sound, and sleep arrives without announcement. Let thoughts drift apart. Let attention soften. Let time lose its edges. Everything continues gently. Space grows. Awareness rests. And just as the universe keeps expanding in silence, you are free to drift into sleep, held securely within the same vast calm that carries everything, slowly, patiently, and without end.